All right, there's a huge new law on the books that's about to completely change the game for anyone entering, staying in, or leaving India. Today, we're going to break down the Immigration and Foreigners Act of 2025. This thing is a big deal because it takes decades of different policies and rolls them all into one single law.
And for this breakdown, we're not messing around with opinions. We're going straight to the source, the official text of the law itself, right from the Gazette of India. We're going to look at what it actually says, what it really means for people, and why it's, well, so important.
Okay, so what is this new act really about? Well, at its heart, it's all about consolidation. Think about it. For years, there was this whole patchwork of old laws, some of them almost 100 years old. This new act just sweeps them all away and replaces them with one single modern rulebook. Let's start with the basics, the foundation. You know, the law itself doesn't waste any time. The very beginning, the preamble, gets right to it. It basically says the main goal here is to give the central government the clear and total power to regulate who comes in, who goes out, and who stays in India. It's really about creating one unified system of control. So the big question is, who are we talking about here? Who does this law actually apply to? Well, the definition is surprisingly simple. A foreigner is just anyone who isn't a citizen of India. That's it. Super broad, right? And that one simple line sets the stage for everything else in this law. All right, so we know who the law covers. The next logical question is, how does it all work in the real world? And it all begins at the most obvious place, the border.
The Act lays out a really clear three-step process for anyone wanting to enter India. First, you've got to show up at an official immigration post. Makes sense. Second, you present a valid passport or travel document. And third, and this is key for foreigners, you also need a valid visa. It's all laid out to be super straightforward, structured, and yeah, absolutely mandatory.
And here's a really critical point, something you can't overlook. The Act literally says that the decision of that immigration officer at the border is final and binding. Just think about that. That gives these officials a massive amount of power to make that on-the-spot call about who gets in and who doesn't.
Okay, so what about on your way out? Well, it's pretty much the same deal. The rules for leaving basically mirror the rules for entering. You're going to need that valid passport, and if you're a foreigner, your visa has to be in order. The whole system is designed to be consistent whether you're coming or going.
All right, so let's say you're in. You've made it past the border. What happens then? Does the law stop caring about you? Nope. The Act's reach goes way beyond the immigration desk. It actually lays out a whole set of rules for foreigners for their entire stay in the country. Once you're actually inside India as a foreigner, you've got some key responsibilities. For one, you have to register with a registration officer. You're also not allowed to just wander into certain protected or restricted areas without a special permit. And get this, you can't even change your name without getting specific permission from the government.
But you might be wondering, how on earth do they enforce all these rules? Well, the Act sets up what is basically a huge information gathering network. It requires a whole bunch of different people and places to report on what foreigners are up to.
Let's start with the most basic thing, where you're staying. The law says that keepers of accommodation, and that's a fancy term for hotels, guest houses, even your landlord, they have to report information about any foreign guests they have to the local authorities.
And this reporting net doesn't stop there. It goes right into the classroom. Any university or school that has a foreign student on its roll is legally required to share information about that student with the authorities.
It even extends to healthcare. Hospitals and clinics also have to provide information about any foreign patients who are receiving inpatient treatment. You can see the pattern here, right? The goal is to build a really comprehensive 360-degree view of a foreigner's presence in the country. So with all these rules and all this reporting, it begs the question, who's actually running the show? Who's in charge of all this? Let's take a look at the key authorities who will be implementing and enforcing this new law.
Right at the very top of the pyramid, the Act is crystal clear. The central government has the final say. They hold all the cards, the overall supervision, direction, and control over every single thing related to immigration.
Now, the day-to-day work, the boots-on-the-ground stuff, that's handled by a few key groups. There's a brand new Bureau of Immigration that's being set up to handle, well, all immigration functions. Then you've got the immigration officers, the ones making those big decisions at the border, and the registration officers who manage foreigners once they're inside the country.
Okay, so we have the rules and we have the people in charge. That just leaves one last piece of the puzzle. What happens if you break the rules? Let's talk about the consequences.
And the Act does not mess around when it comes to penalties. We're talking serious consequences here. For instance, if you enter the country illegally, you could face up to 5 years in prison. If you use fake documents, that could be up to 7 years and a massive fine. Even just overstaying your visa could land you in jail for up to 3 years. The message is pretty loud and clear. You have to follow these rules.
So to wrap this all up, what's the big takeaway? The main point of this new act is really consolidation. It's taking all these older, separate laws like the Foreigners Act from way back in 1946 and replacing them all with one single, modern legal framework designed for today.
And that really leaves us with the big question to think about. This new law takes decades of different rules and pulls them all together into one powerful, centralized system. So the real question we're left with is, how is this massive consolidation of power actually going to change things for real